I think we got it. We're back, and I have our back up and working, so we're ready to proceed with. Now, I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name, Mr. Brent. Would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and DOC number.
Okay, my name is Brent Michale, 8342.
Would you take the DOC number? I'm sorry.
83402.
All right, Mr. McHale. And you have counsel with you this morning. I'd like Mr. Lancaster, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, ma'am. Robert Lancaster here on behalf of Mr. Brent Michale with the LSU Parole and Reentry Clinic. With me today is Anna Lewis. Ms. Lewis is a second-year student at the LSU Law Center. She's been working with Mr. Michale in helping him prepare for the hearing today. She submitted the packet that the board should have. She is not certified under Louisiana Supreme Court Rule 20, but she is prepared to give a statement of support if the board deems it appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. On my end, I've got Carrie Myers with the Parole Project and Elisa Patterson, who will be speaking. And I see there's a guest there at the prison. Sorry, would you introduce yourself?
How you doing? My name is Bryce Solomon, my nephew.
All right. And do you plan to speak on his behalf?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, first I'll just read some identifying information about Mr. Michale into the record. And then I'll turn it over to Mr. Marabella because Mr. Michale's case has been assigned to him. He'll take the lead on the interview. We'll hear from the facility staff and then from those who've indicated they'd like to speak. Mr. Michale, you'll be allowed to make a statement before we turn it over to Ms. Lewis. We'll close out first. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
All right, Mr. Michale, as mentioned, your DOC number is 83402. You're here seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in St. Tammany Parish. December 1975, you were sentenced to death for a first-degree murder conviction. In February 1977, you were resentenced to life. Is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And also we have Mr. Bryant Clark from the DA's office who will be speaking in opposition at the appropriate time. Mr. Michale, would you answer Mr. Marabella's question?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Michale. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
My name is Tony Marabella. I'm going to start the interview process, okay?
All right.
How old are you, Mr. Michale?
74.
And how long have you been in prison on these charges?
48 years.
How old were you when this happened?
I think I was 27.
Tell me a little bit about Brent Michale at 27 years old. What was your educational background at the time?
About 8th grade. And I was young and foolish.
Were you working at the time?
Yes, I was.
What kind of work were you doing?
I was doing cement work.
And where were you? Who were you living with?
I was living with my lady friend.
Do you have children?
Yes, I do.
How many children do you have?
I got 2 boys by separate ladies, but I got some other stepchildren that I consider mine as well.
Do you have a relationship with those children? Do they talk to you, write to you, come see you?
Yes, all of them.
You mentioned in your application that you didn't have a drug problem or anything like that. Let's talk about drugs or alcohol. Did you use drugs when you were younger?
I used to drink.
Okay, what about drugs?
Well, but that was when I was a youngster, a kid. Then.
Well, okay, I just want to know, did you ever use drugs in your life?
No, I done tried, I think I done tried everything.
Okay, tell me what you tried. Tried marijuana,
Oh, yeah, I ain't like it.
okay?
I ain't like it.
Did you try cocaine?
No, I ain't never tried cocaine.
Now, I noticed on your rap sheet, you were arrested, although there's no disposition for it, but you were arrested. Heroin joint. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, tell me about that. Were you around heroin for some reason?
Uh, I guess you can say that because they found a needle. Needle for to shoot drugs with.
Right.
You stand outside a club on the side of a wall.
Okay,
Yeah.
were you ever used heroin?
No,
So drugs or alcohol, were they part of this crime that you committed?
no, I can't say that.
But well, tell me at 27 years old, what prompted you to commit this crime, ultimately this murder?
Well, we were riding over inside there. We were short of money, the car was breaking down. So we needed some money.
So exactly what happened and what was your role?
Well, my role was to go in and get the money out the cash register, but it didn't happen like that.
Tell me exactly what happened.
Okay, the man was behind the counter.
Okay.
When I said, give me that money, he said, no, and he pulled out a gun and shot. And I got shot on the floor, then I returned fire and hit him. And he died and I lived. But I'm dead too.
Now, let's talk a little bit about what you've done since you've been in prison. You said that on the outside, you had gone to the 8th grade. Now, you got your GED, I understand. Did you get your GED while you've been in prison?
Right.
When did you get your GED?
About 85.
And you've taken a number of programs. I've seen where you've taken Thinking for a Change, Victim Awareness, Anger Management, Chair Walker Training, Malachi Dads. Tell me which of those programs, or perhaps all of the programs, that were very helpful to you and what you got out of it. What was the most important program you took, you think?
Thank you for a change, I
Okay,
think.
tell me how that helped you improve.
Well, it helped me to really think about things before I really act. Instead of, because I used to usually act on emotions, and I started to think about it before I do it.
And what might you do differently now than you did back then? I mean, what have you thought about what you did?
Oh, did I?
Oh,
Yes.
if you had it to do over, what might you do?
That wouldn't happen. That couldn't happen no more. But I learned how to think now. We'd have walked home instead of trying to get some money to put a cup.
Now, the gentleman who was killed was Clyde Sawyer. Have you
Yeah.
given any thought to what his family must have gone through, or what perhaps is still going through?
Yeah, I give a lot of thought to that.
Tell me about that. Tell me what your crime, you're killing Mr. Sawyer. What do you think? How do you think that has affected other people?
Oh, I think it stagnated them a whole great deal. Because they lost a loved one, and I'm truly sorry about that. But that was a bad decision that I made. And I hold accountable for that. You know, that will never happen no more.
You're also a member of incarcerated veterans. Tell me a little bit about that. What is that?
I didn't hear you.
Incarcerated.
I understand that you're a member of incarcerated veterans.
Veterans? No, I'm not a veteran.
I understand that, but I understood that in your record, it shows that you were a member of incarcerated vets. Is that,
No, I work for all of them. I work for the vest club and all that.
okay, well, tell me what kind of work you do with them then.
Well, I cook. I prepare breakfast and all that stuff. And food, you know. At the sale, I do that. I was a cook, brother.
Okay. And did you also work with Point Lookout?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
But look, I was well, that's the guy that didn't have no family and they die up here. We decided to give him a decent burial. And to the Point Lookout Committee was created for that purpose.
And how long did you work with that committee?
We work from now on. That's what will always be.
How long have you been with them in doing that?
Since the beginning.
Now, your last write-up was in 2010. What was that for? You remember?
I think it was for contraband. I think it was a key that opened the flammable cabin. And that was a charge there for possessing a key. The key that opened my cabinet at work opened the flammable cabinet in the camp. So they locked me up for that, contraband.
And you are a trustee, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
A trustee since 1980 or in the 80s?
In the 80s, about 83, I think.
And your current job is in pest control. I think you've been doing that for 20 years. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You said you work with a lot of the clubs. Do you do other community service or other work for other people there in prison?
Oh, yes, sir. I used to officiate the games, sports games. And I used to cook for human relations. And I help take care of the old guys like me around the camp.
Now, you're before us hoping that you get a favorable vote, so eventually you'll be able to get out, right?
Yes, sir.
So tell me how it is that you're different than you were when you came in here. What one or two things that come to your mind while you've been in here that might convince me to say, you know, I'm going to vote yes. I think this guy has changed a lot. What would you want me to know about you that I might not know right now?
Well, I'm a changed man. And
Alan,
I think no, I can be a productive citizen if you grant me this recommendation. I can. And I'll be willing to prove that to you.
now, I think I read in your documentation that your lawyer did a very good job with and submitted to us that one of the programs that you mentioned it to me too, Thanking for a Change was something that really was important to you. So talk to me about how you think differently today than you did back then.
Well, I give myself time to think now. I don't just move on impulse or something like that. I take my time and look and try to find the best solution and I go with that.
How is your health?
It's terrible.
Do you have any physical issues or any physical problems?
Well, I got heart trouble. I'm a diabetic. I got a pacemaker. You name it, I got it.
I see Mr. Myers is here, and I understand you're gonna be going with the Parole project. Tell me what you understand is gonna happen if you get a favorable vote and you ultimately get out. Where are you gonna go and what do you hope to do?
Well, I have a place to stay, but I want to go with Karen now to the project. I need to go there, you know, and go there for a while, and then I can go to my house.
Where's your house? Where do you ultimately want to end up?
With my little baby sister, right next door to my little baby sister.
And where is that?
It's in New Orleans. It's in the Gentile area, right? Gentile area of New Orleans.
What can you tell us about Mr. Michale?
Mr. Who?
He is 74-year-old male. As far as his medical, he's got a past or current medical history of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, congestive heart failure. He does have a defibrillator placement. He's got peripheral artery disease, diabetes. He does have a cardiac history. He suffers from chronic kidney disease, COPD, glaucoma, as well as being successfully treated for hepatitis C. Despite these, he still maintains a regular duty status. He has a 20-year history for us in pest control. Prior to that, has worked in body and fender, telephone repair. He's had a lot of jobs for us. He talks about his cooking, and the reason some of that he's able to cook is because we'll keep him up all night doing pest control. That's not a job. That's a 9 to 5 here. Especially in the kitchen areas, that sort of thing. We do those. He also has a 20+ year, as he pointed out, with Point Lookout, assisting with the funeral and burial of those offenders that either by choice or by circumstance are buried here on the grounds. So he's done a lot of good work for us.
Thank you, Warren. Thank you very much. Chairman.
I don't see any other questions, so we'd like to hear from Miss Elisa Patterson.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Ma'am.
Okay. So I want to thank the board for allowing me to speak today. I'm Elisa Patterson. I'm Brent's daughter-in-law, and I'm married to his son, Brian. I've known Brent for almost 30 years now, and I've only had a relationship while he's been incarcerated, but as I've known him to be caring and thoughtful and kind and very soft-spoken man. Most people in their life make minor mistakes, like getting a speeding ticket or, causing a fender bender. Unfortunately, that's not the case for Brent. He made a horrible decision based on lack of guidance, lack of education, and his financial situation at the time. It's said in one's lifetime that the first part of your life, growing up and, in your first 20 to 25 years, you're developing as a person and you're developing into an adult. And then you spend 40 years living as an adult life by working, having children, building relationships. And then you spend the last 20 years, whether healthy or unhealthy, living out the remainder of one's days. Brent, to me, has always been a good person. The unfortunate thing is that he made a lot of bad choices, and one bad choice, cost a life and basically cost his life. And he spent his adult life living with reflection and remorse and regret. He's worked hard. He's mentored other inmates, learned the word of God. He's matured into a man that knows right from wrong and knows what he did was unspeakable, and now he's in his 70s. He's, as we talked about, he's not the healthiest. he has a lot of health issues. He's served almost 50 years and could be considered, 2 life sentences if you think about it, based on like the 3 stages of life. He's done his time, he's repented, he showed that he can be rehabilitated. He deserves his freedom, in my opinion, to live the remainder of his days outside of Angola. It would be a good opportunity for him to, help others to keep on track and, teaching his 2 sons and grandchildren life lessons that only he can teach. Us as a family, we're going to be there to support him, whether it's physically, emotionally, or financially. We're there no matter what. So, in our eyes, he's rehabilitated, and we really feel he deserves the opportunity to live the remainder of his days outside of the Angola prison. We truly hope that the board will consider granting Brent clemency.
Thank you.
You're
And you
welcome.
joined us from California.
Oh, yeah. Well, yes, I'm out here in Santa Clarita, California.
Well, thanks for joining us. We appreciate
You're-
your input.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. Appreciate it.
The Parole Project, Mr. Myers.
Yes, good afternoon, Kerry Myers, Louisiana Parole Project. Mr. Michale is what you see as a very humble man. We are here now to support his transition. We'll make sure he has his medical services. We'll make sure he's connected to those. We'll make sure he's connected to any other benefits that he might have, that he has income. He willingly knows that after 48 years, that our program could benefit his transition, and we know that we can help. His service there at the prison during the 48 years, I coordinated Point Lookout Project for more than a dozen years, and I can tell you that there was no one more loyal than Brent. Being there at funerals to make sure that person's dignity, whether there was family or no family there, that person's dignity was respected, and he did it simply because he felt that it was his obligation to do so, and that's the kind of person he is. 20 years at the same job, stability, humility, and we just believe that Brent would be, and everyone would be better served if Brent if he was on supervision or what it might be, that his time would be best spent outside of Angola than there. So we'd ask this board to consider his recommendation today.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Michale, is there a statement you'd like to make before we turn it over to Ms. Lewis? Oh, I'm sorry. Let me hear from the DA's office first. Mr. Clark, I apologize. We'd like your input.
Good afternoon. The state, just briefly, notes its opposition, mostly based on the nature of the offense. Obviously, this is a first-degree murder charge, being one of the most severe convictions that one can have. In this particular case, as the board has noted, a death sentence was originally imposed in this case that was then amended to a life sentence, once again denoting the severity of this crime, in this case, the murder and the perpetration of an armed robbery. Based on the fact that this is a first-degree murder, the state would oppose any commutation in this matter.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We appreciate the DA. Mr. Michale, is there a statement you'd like to make?
Mr. Reynolds,
We have a gentleman here that was requesting to speak.
Mr. Sullivan, I'm sorry. Mr. Sullivan?
Yes. How you doing? Good afternoon, everybody on the panel. It's a pleasure to meet you. I wish I would have met you on different circumstances. I would like to speak on my uncle's behalf. I'm 46 years old. My uncle has been incarcerated for 48 years, but ever since I've been born, my uncle has been a motivational role model for me. He's also always told me to stay in school, do the right thing, grow up to be somebody, put your stamp on society and life. Because of his teachings, his guidance, even though he's been incarcerated, I've joined the military, I'm retired. I'm a college graduate. I work for City Hall in New Orleans, and all of that wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for his guidance. And I would like to just point that out that, yes, he did a crime. I know more than anyone that he's very, very sorry about it. I've heard the stories. I've heard him mention his regret for it, but he's also shown that he's one of the studies on the penitentiary that shows that you can be rehabilitated, that you can be a productive member of society, and that all of the good things you guys keep hearing about him, as all the things that he's done in the last 48 years of being in these different type of programs and being supportive to other prisoners and being supportive and being gainfully employed by the warden, he can do those same things as a productive member of society outside of the penitentiary. He can also support the youth. He can also support other people, maybe his age, that needs guidance, that don't know where to go or don't know what to do. He can be a cautionary tale, and I think that he can really make those a better, stronger impact outside of Angola, just like he has made a strong impact inside. That is all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Mr. McGill, you have a statement?
Yes. I would like this to the victim family as well as my family. I sure hope that y'all can find in your heart to forgive me for the bad decision I made. You know. And I just wanted to pay that tribute to them.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Ms. Lewis?
Yes, good afternoon, members of the board. I'm here with Mr. Michale today, and we can see that he is no longer the man he was in 1975 when he committed this heinous crime. He has truly transformed himself from the reckless 27-year-old he was, and he could honestly not be further from that 27-year-old today. He has, like many people have said, he's humble, he's caring. He has accomplished a great transformation throughout his time, and by taking advantage of all the opportunities he could while incarcerated, as we've seen. This started when he got his GED in 1985. Regardless of his life sentence, he still chose to pursue that, and it gave him a sense of, it showed him how successful he can be when he puts his mind to something. As we talked about, thinking for a change had a huge impact on him, and he tells me that it's really whenever he learned to take responsibility, to slow down, to think before he makes decisions, and to think about the consequences of his actions. I think most notably, though, has been his community involvement while incarcerated. Some people might have simply, with a life sentence, gotten disheartened and just chosen not to do as much involvement, but he was part of the lifers that created Point Lookout Project. He cares about human dignity. He cooks for for human relations and the veterans. All of this shows that his empathy and his caring for other people. Again, his job in pest control, his steady 20 years of employment shows that he has stability, dependability, that he's not gonna just act out like he did when he was 27. And he has a strong reentry plan. He has strong family support, and he'll be with the Louisiana Parole Project. He will be staying with his sisters. So ultimately, Mr. Michale has fully recognized the impact he has had on the victim's family and his own family. And regardless, he has taken advantage of all the opportunities to better himself at the Louisiana State Penitentiary. I also believe he is fully rehabilitated. You know, he has a low risk Tiger score, and he has significantly aged out of crime. So for all of these reasons, Mr. Michale requests that the honorable board today recommends clemency to commute his life sentence to 90 years. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're prepared to vote. Mr. Mirabella?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First off, I'd like to thank everyone who participated today. Your input is extremely important to us. Mr. Clark, we have heard you. I certainly have heard you. This was a horrible crime, and that is certainly a factor this board takes into account. Mr. Michale, I've been impressed with your interview. You have, I'm convinced that you're not the same person that committed this crime 48 years ago. You're 74 years old. I'm a little older than you. I'm still walking around. I'm still doing things. So you've got a lot of life left, hopefully, to keep going. You've worked hard while you've been in prison. The board has spoken very highly of what you've done. You've got a good prison record. Your service, your community service to your community while you've been in prison is certainly something that I look at very closely to determine whether or not willing to vote to let someone out. You've done a lot of good things. You've got a good transition plan. You've got a lot of support. You've got people who are there to care for you. If I thought a vote to deny your parole would bring back the victim in this case, I'd vote the same, but it would. My job today is to determine if you've changed, how you've changed, and whether or not you have rehabilitated and can be a productive member of society. My answer to those things is yes. My vote today would be to vote as your lawyer has requested. Commutation recommended above. He commute your sentence to 90 years in prison with immediate parole. Good luck, please.
Mr. Freeman?
I concur with Mr. Marabella, and I also vote against 99 years. No.
You said 9.
9.
Mr. Rochelle?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Brent, based upon your age, the length of your incarceration, your medical issues, the community service that you've rendered to the facility, your excellent institutional record, and a good transition plan, I voted community sentence to 90 years with immediate parole eligibility.
Mr. Michale, I do concur with my colleague. Based on the good work that you've done there for the prison and prison community, my vote is to recommend commutation to 90 years with parole eligibility. So that serves the recommendation on my behalf. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How do you feel about that? Do you guys recognize the Assistant DA, Brian Clark? The last time we saw them, he and the board had gotten into a little bit of a, what should we call it? Fight, I guess. I'll put a link to that up there in the top if you want to see that hearing. It is nice to see that the DA showed up for this. I think it's important, very important that someone represents the victim, because there was no one else there. There was no family, there was no. And what I have seen is that in many cases, see the parole board issues like an official letter, which is their requirement about parole hearings, and then they claim to have someone that calls victims to ask if they want to make statements. But we have seen on this that victims have claimed that they had never received. We saw one where, so that this is a commutation hearing, right? So he just received his commutation, and then the governor has to sign off on it or not. Sometimes it can happen within 6 months. Sometimes it can take 2-3 years. Sometimes it doesn't even happen in the governor's term. It's the next governor. And then they have a parole hearing, which is usually a shoo-in at that time, unless they had done, the inmate had gotten write-ups or done something very wrong. So we had family show up at that parole hearing after they had been commutated, and said, we never got a letter, we never got a phone call, we never, and the parole board said, oh, we contact everyone, but I of course believe the victim. So just because someone doesn't show up doesn't mean that there isn't opposition. It doesn't mean that there isn't a child of the deceased that would have liked to have shown up here. What happened is at 1975, at 11:30 p.m., the victim, Clyde Sawyer, was a night bookkeeper at the Holiday Inn in Slidell, Louisiana, and he was held up by 3 men. He drew his pistol and exchanged shots with the robbers, wounding one of them. This man over here, he hit him in the jaw. And I thank you, Richard, for this information. We had spoken about this case on email. We thought maybe he would have visible damage, but I couldn't see anything. And the victim, Clyde, was mortally wounded. And then Brent was taken to the hospital. Well, an ambulance was flagged down by another man on the highway about 20 miles from the robbery. And they told him he had a gunshot wound. A bullet was lodged in his jaw. We don't know what happened and all of that, but man, I would give getting in a gunfight, of course, he probably felt he had to do it, like he had no other choice. I carry. I have a license to do that, and I still, if it was money someone wanted, I would give it 100 times out of 100. But because you just don't know how a gunfight can work out. And I'm not blaming the deceased here. That is not what I'm doing. I am just talking and reflecting on it, because it's just terrible. Then what was interesting about this case is that they were given the death penalty. Him and his co-defendants were given the death penalty by electric chair, and then that was overturned because I think it says here in this article, which I'll paste in the bottom, that death penalties were, I think, mandatory for first-degree murder charges, and then they found that unconstitutional. So that law was changed. I did not know that they had mandatory death sentences. Certain cases, they argued even on the appeals whether this should be first degree murder versus second degree. I mean, first degree murder means that you go in with an intent to kill. And I don't know how you prove that this was first degree murder. I'm not a lawyer and I don't claim to be, but if someone could tell me if this has been seen in other cases, you go in to rob someone with a gun, and then the person who you're robbing shoots you and you shoot back. Are you saying it's first degree murder because as soon as you had the gun, there was an intent of shooting if the other person had a gun, and therefore it's first degree murder? I don't really know. I'm just curious from a legal perspective how a jury could have found that it's first degree if it's just not clear that it was armed robbery. The intent was to steal money. he didn't shoot until he was shot. So I don't know. I'm just curious if I can get comments on that. Please educate us. Now, how do you feel? How do you feel? I think it always comes down to, like, again, not having victim opposition makes it easy for me to say, let him out. He served a long time. He's done really good things in prison. And it wasn't one of those, sickening crimes. It was, he was doing armed robbery up to no good. And he was shot in the face. I did not like how what did he say? He's like, what did he say? He said something which was not great. I asked for the money. He shot me, I shot back. He died and I lived. And I think he said after that, we both died that day. Something like, no, you didn't both die that day. You killed a man. And yeah, your life as you knew it ended that day. But it's, like, some of the things that people say, it just blows my mind. You've had 42 years to think about. How long has it been for? To think about what to say. It's like, don't say something that's just completely ridiculous. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. With that, I'll let you go.